One of the most helpful things I've learned is that I'm not alone. You're not alone. And as we open up to the right people, we'll see our communities grow bigger and stronger. If you find this video helpful, please support us by liking and subscribing. And if you know someone this video can help, please pass it their way. My mission is to help make the world a safer place by sharing with you the stories that saved me. Tell me, how did the world treat you when they saw you as a Black man?
The world treated me, well, first of all, I was always a feminine Black man. So I've always been an outcast, it seems, in every single community that I've sort of inhabited. So in school, I would get told to stop, when I was in elementary school, I got told at a very young age to stop swishing my hips, because that was a sign of femininity. And the teacher was like, why are you swishing your hips?
The teacher said that to you?
Yeah. So she was like, stop swishing your hips. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know what it meant back then. But I was just naturally feminine and jovial. So that was out of the norm for little Black boys back then, at least in my environment. So being happy and sort of I don't know, expressing my feelings more and being more animated was seen as queer. Whereas boys my age were supposed to be playing basketball and going after girls and to always talking about girls. The conversation would always be about girls, right? So since I didn't really care to engage in those conversations, or I wasn't rowdy, I wasn't into physically I don't know. I wasn't into that sort of rite of passage of roughhousing with other guys when I was in elementary school. So that was always something where I was like, okay, so that's not my crowd. I didn't really fit in with the nerds either, because I wasn't a nerd either. Back then I was just more a loner, because I was I realized that I was different from a very, very young age. I remember, actually, I should probably start from the very, very beginning when I realized I was queer. Was probably when I was 5, because I love playing with Barbies, and I would see my sister's Barbies on the floor in the family room, and I would pick up the Barbies and brush their hair and stuff. And I also had toy trains and cars and Hot Wheels and stuff, normal boy toys, but I would be very interested in Barbies and long hair. And I'd be I kind of wish I had long hair too, when I was 5 or 6. And then I realized also when I was in first grade, when we had to cut out the little pink hearts for Valentine's Day and exchange them, I didn't want to participate because I knew that I didn't want to give my Valentine to a girl. In first grade, I knew all of this. I love that. I didn't want to participate in that tradition. Something felt weird to me. I was just I don't care to do this. And then maybe it's because I subconsciously knew that I couldn't give my Valentine to a boy. So then I said, I guess I'm just not interested in Valentine's Day. So that was that. And then, growing up, all of these little signs kept popping up here and there. And there's a million different examples, not wanting to wear certain clothes because I felt weird about, my penis. I was why do I have a penis? From a very young age, I was I don't really care to have this. And I didn't even, not that I wanted a vagina back then, but I was I don't care. This thing was I felt self-conscious about it. Yeah. So I do remember that, feeling gender dysphoria from a young age. So as a black man, back then, other people could sense this. They would always be like, do you have a girlfriend? Do you like girls? Like, are you gay? And I would be like, it's none of your business. Like, I wouldn't like flat out deny it, but like I would be like, it's none of your business. Like, my sexuality is none of your business, because it actually wasn't. So, but I also just like knew that it was taboo to be like queer back then, especially in the black community. I actually experienced misogyny growing up because I was so feminine naturally that I didn't like I wasn't putting on airs. Like, I just was naturally like a feminine entity. So like people would like, I remember one time in the store, my hair was like a little bit long, no makeup or anything. This guy, he was a little bit older, so I don't know if his sight was like off or anything, but he saw me and my mom. He was like, two pretty ladies. I was like, oh, okay. Like, I wasn't even trans at the time. So like, I was like, okay, well, I didn't feel offended by it at all, because I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That tracks. You know what I mean? So, and so as a black man, I got treated really badly because of it. So I got like, bullied a lot because I was feminine. I got called a faggot all the time, all the time, by random people like on the street, like, and kids too. Wow. I got called faggot all the time by mostly people in my community. White people just so the thing about racism, this is a nice little segue into racism. So me being ostracized by my own community was very interesting, because I didn't feel at home there, and I didn't feel at home with whites either, because whites just like kind of like ignored me as like this, like, I don't know, like whites just kind of ignored me. Like, I always felt ignored. Like, I felt like my opinions weren't valued. Sometimes, like, in my friend groups, I was friends with a very diverse group of kids growing up. Like, there was like a mixed kid, a white kid, a black kid, and I think another Asian kid was in there too. So like, I had a very diverse group of like friends, and mostly that centered around gaming and stuff like that. So that was kind of a refuge for me. But in terms of like my general experience, like having discussions with people would just like tend to interrupt me a lot. They would not ask my opinion in certain respects, or just not engage me, not ever invite me to anything. Like, growing up, like, I really rarely was invited to anything.
I didn't have any friends growing up.
People just don't invite. I don't know, like, so you can relate, like, to not feeling sort of, I guess, desirable. Like I don't
know.
I don't know what that was about. I think that also being queer was sort of interesting, because I did have an online community that I could take refuge in, and a lot of LGBT people create little communities online where they can sort of share their stories. And like, I remember reading a lot of fan fiction growing up, and that was like really cathartic for me, because I'd never really seen queer relationships represented in a healthy way in mass media growing up. So being able to go online and read stories was a great way for me to sort of be like, oh, okay, so that's probably what going on a date in high school would be like if I had the wherewithal to come out and, live my life authentically. So that was good. But it still was like lonely, because it was like not real.
So when I cut my hair and I went from the world viewing me as more feminine to more masculine, what I noticed was, actually, I realized I had good looking privilege. I didn't realize you know, that people were treating me like a pretty girl until, you know, the people not trying to buy me drinks stopped. Or people trying to buy me drinks stopped, and people holding doors for me stopped. But also, something I noticed was people started respecting me more now that they see me a little more masculine. How does the world treat you as a Black woman?
I think that since I transitioned, I got a lot more confident, and my demeanor is a lot more like I like myself. So people can sense that, and I think when you give off the air like you're not 100% confident in who you are, people tend to, I guess, subconsciously just not respect me. So when I was a Black man, I didn't really like myself like that. Like, I liked the way I looked sometimes, when the way I put myself together, like when I had nice clothes on, or when I wore makeup and was like butch mask with makeup on, I felt okay. But now, as like a trans girl, like, I talk more confidently, I look people in the eyes more, and I just generally just have more, I enjoy life more. So people just like treat me a lot more, like, people treat me a lot better, I think.
That's good.
And that's very interesting how society treats, I guess, less confident people. That's not good. I think we should treat everybody with respect.
Absolutely.
You know, at the end of the day, like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, and give you a whole thesis statement about why I deserve to exist. And then to have you guys be like, but you're still a tranny and you're still a man, right? Because that is the response that like most trans people get online, is like, you're still a man, like you should, and you need to tell all men that you have a penis upon meeting them, regardless of if you're interested in them or not, and shit like that. Like, it's like, and also, like, a lot of bigots will like justify the murder of trans women as though, like, you know, in domestic partner violence and shit like that, because they're like, oh, you should have been honest with the guy. Like, 9 times out of 10, the guy knows that the girl is trans. The trans women are very upfront with that, especially over messaging, because we don't want to have situations where we're in unsafe, you know, environments. So we generally get online and get on apps that are catered to LGBT people in order to, you know, meet men who want to get with trans people.
Some people still think of transitioning as if it was like this casual choice.
Yeah.
You make, like, what am I going to eat today? Right? So can you please educate and enlighten people about how not casual this process really is?
Yeah, it's super intense. Being trans is not easy. If people didn't have gender dysphoria, if gender dysphoria wasn't like real, right, then I don't think the majority of people who are trans would be trans, right? Because it is so difficult to be trans. Like, truly, I felt since I was a very young age, like I would say, like, since as far back as I can actually remember, my first life experiences before even first grade, like kindergarten, I've always felt like I was not a boy. And I was bombarded with heterosexuality. I was bombarded with men are men and women are women, right? From a very young age, I had a mom, I had a dad, they were married. I was raised Baptist, Christian, with that value set. And I didn't know any queer people growing up, really. And I still felt gender dysphoria. So when people say things like, oh, you know, you know, it's just like they're seeing media of men wearing dresses, so then they're getting confused. So I'm like, no, I didn't see that shit when I was growing up. I saw men as men and women as women, but I still had gender dysphoria. So that, I feel like, empirically proves, from my own life experience, you can believe me if you want to, or if you cannot believe me if you want to, but it's true. Like, it's really fucking true. I know that I was born in the wrong body since I was a fucking toddler. And, you know, I didn't know what being trans was. That's why I transitioned so late in life, because I didn't know anything about being trans. But I still was like hella feminine growing up, and I didn't know anything about it. I just knew that I wanted to be a girl. Like, I wrote in my diary growing up that, you know, like, I wish I was a girl. I don't know why, like, I really want to be a girl so bad, but I would write pages and pages and pages in my diary growing up, just like, I want to be a girl. And I would play with Barbies. I would, like, want long hair. Like, I wanted to be pretty also, but I didn't know what any of that meant, right? And it didn't, and by the way, Republicans, you not supporting your kid in their transition and trying to force them to be masculine even though they feel like they're a girl doesn't work, because as soon as they're out of your clutches and now they're adults, they'll be able to make their own choices, and then they'll still transition any fucking way.
Yeah. Can you talk about how it's actually safer to transition
when you're younger?
Yeah, please.
It's actually safer, and, you know, and it would alleviate a lot of, you know, a lot of things in society if people were allowed to transition younger, which they are in a lot of states. But people are pushing back against that right now, because they don't want to fucking look at the science of it. But the younger you get hormone treatment, the more cisgender, for anyone who doesn't know what cisgender means, just basically means that, so do you identify as a
Cis-woman.
A cis woman. You identify as the gender you were born. That is what cis means, basically, for anyone who doesn't know. Anyways, so the younger you get on hormone treatments and hormone blockers, puberty blockers, the more cis you're going to look. So if you identify as a woman and you were born a male, if you get on puberty blockers, you won't develop like as a man would. You would develop as, or rather as a male would. So you're probably not going to have big muscles. You're probably not going to have such a strong bone structure in your face. Your face is going to look more slight, more feminine, more cis. So, and same goes for females transitioning into males. If they get on puberty blockers and get on testosterone, they're going to look more like a typical man would when I don't want to say biological man, a biological male would if he goes through a normal puberty. So what I want to end on is just like, guys, like, honey, I want to reiterate again that, like, being queer, LGBTQIA plus pronouns, like, y'all don't like these conversations, but they're going to keep happening. You know why? Because we have the internet now, and people, regardless of how many books you burn, right? No matter how much you Republicans hate it, it's gonna, like,
We're here.
We're here, honey.
And there's a lot of us.
There's a lot of queer people. Like, people are queer.